Hello, everybody, and good evening, and welcome to the latest Brain or Shine webinar with myself, Mark, and Jules.
Hello, everybody, and a very warm welcome to you all. So, the topic or theme, I guess that's the right way to describe it, it's all about cognitive difficulties following, obviously, a brain injury. We're going to have a look at some of the kind of most common ones. There are so many cognitive difficulties that we could probably be here for about 4 hours, but I think we'd wear you all out and ourselves, so it's not a good idea. So we're just going to have a look at a few. Thank you. So yeah, feel free to share your experience in the chat if you feel comfortable to do that. There's no pressure to do it whatsoever.
No, not at all.
So one of the first things we're going to have a little look at, and something that we struggle with, and I say we because although Mark is the person that has the brain injury, the ripple effect means that, yes, it's something that affects me, it affects our family, it affects our friends. So whenever we say anything, and I say we, it's because it does affect both of us.
Of course, yeah. And I'm going to be really honest with you, cognitive difficulty has been really difficult in the last few weeks as well. And especially this week, I've really struggled with fatigue and concentration. So it is quite a relevant topic to this week, isn't it?
And I think, yeah, so you've just mentioned concentration. So we might as well start with that one, concentration and attention. And there's sort of attention and concentration is in sort of three categories. You have what I call sustained attention. So that is if you've got to do something for a long period of time. So for example, it could be that you've got a long drive, and I know we've spoken about this before in previous ones, but that sustained attention is difficult. And then there's a thing called divided attention, where you're trying to multitask, which is something that's very difficult. And there's something called selective attention, which is where you can ignore things like distractions, which is something very difficult for anybody with a brain injury.
Yeah, and all three of those, I mean, again, sustained attention that you're talking about, and you use the example of driving. Now, driving is something that if you can do it with your brain injury, you need to stay safe, really, don't you? And I found, especially with long journeys, and we've talked about this in previous podcasts and webinars, that if I was doing a long journey, it would be really difficult to sustain my concentration for a long period of time. And that was especially at night as well, with lights coming towards me. So if I was driving on a dual carriageway, so if there was traffic coming the other way towards me, I would find it really difficult if lights were sort of flashing past me that way as well. So that's something that's quite important as well, sustained attention. And of course, if you're giving me some information, I need to concentrate on that. And that's really difficult sometimes, because Jules might be telling me something really important, and that just won't go in.
And Tess has asked, what coping techniques do we suggest for sustained attention with the digital world working against us?
Yeah.
And I find that very difficult, because for me, sometimes I think, I'm going to share something quite personal. Mark spends too much time in the digital world, and then we have the knock-on effect of the fatigue creeps straight in, and then he's flagging, and then obviously the attention goes. What we try and do is, we can't get away from it. We have to do things in the digital world, is trying to break it down if you can.
Yeah, I mean, an example of that this week was I was contacting our bank's customer services. Now, I struggle talking on the phone to people as well. If I can't see somebody, I find it really hard to have a long phone conversation. So the great thing about the technical digital world is you can use the chat functions now, which is great. But I was trying to explain a process to somebody, and I kept going back to the start of the process and not realizing I'd done something on the account to get to the stage where I was. And they kept saying, no, you need to go back here. And it took about 1 hour and 45 minutes before I gave up, because every time I put something in there, the person went, oh, let me go and check that for you, and came back about 5 or 10 minutes later. Now, in an ideal world, I could have just put that down and waited for it to give me a notification that person had replied. But because I knew it was there in my mind, that whole attention and focus was really, really difficult. So I think what I probably should have done in that case was just to log off and start again and go back to it another day. But yeah, it's really, really difficult, isn't it, when you say what coping strategies you use? Because for me, it's just trying to get rid of any of the distractions. And we talked about the selective as well, ignoring distractions. It's really hard if there's stuff going on in the background. So maybe if it's something that you need to just focus on that one task, moving everything else out of the way. And we've had this before, haven't we, where I've been doing something and you say, I need to tell you something now. So I've had to almost stop that bit I'm doing or walk away from what I'm doing so I can listen to Jules and have a better chance of taking that information on without getting too fatigued as well.
Yeah, it is a difficult one. And obviously everybody's different in terms of their capabilities of how long you can maintain your concentration. And I think it is about trying to find what your boundaries are with it and how much you can keep a sustained concentration before it begins to be too much for you. And sometimes that's not something that I do appreciate, that you find that difficult because you're trying to do something. You don't want to stop, you want to continue and get to the end of it. But sometimes it's recognizing as well that it's becoming too much for you and saying, right, I need to break this state now. I need to do something else.
Yeah.
Or just go and sit in a quiet part of the house or something.
Sit somewhere quiet. Tim's put in there, and I know, Tim, we've talked about this loads before, haven't we? The driving, and when you're driving past a row of trees or bushes and the light's flashing, the sunlight shining down and it's flashing, or if you've got the sunlight bouncing off of a wet road after the rain or something like that, that can be really difficult as well. So it is really hard to get rid of that distraction because you can't close your eyes when you're driving and think, right, I'm going to switch off from that sun bouncing off the road or whatever. Yeah. It is really, really hard. But sometimes, again, it is that thing of let's just pull over and stop for a moment. It might be that if I'm driving, there's times where I've pulled over and said to Jules, right, you take over now. Obviously,
sometimes I say the other way around.
Yeah, you should say the other way around. We are just talking about driving, but again, that is something where you could say, like the bank example the other night, I could have said to Jules, look, could you just take over this bit for me now?
I mean, I've had to do that quite a few times when you've started something like a conversation with the bank or different things, and I can see straight away that the confusion in your face, that you're not understanding the information that you're being given. So I've just sort of stepped in and explained to the person that I'm in on the conversation now and they need to talk to me because you're really, really struggling.
Yeah, we had that.
Generally, they're quite good about,
Yeah, we had that with the Inland Revenue, the tax HMRC. We had to ring somebody about a tax. It's always financial institutions, isn't it? And the lady had a really, really strong accent and spoke very, very quickly. And I couldn't understand her. And in the end, I said, look, I'm really sorry. It's not you personally, but I'm struggling to hear and keep up with what you're saying because I explained I had a brain injury. And I said, but my wife's here, so she's authorised on this conversation to speak as well on my behalf. So that was quite good. And if there was anything that she asked a question that Jules didn't know, then I was obviously able to answer that question, but it did work. I'll be honest with you, I needed to lay down after it. Yeah.
And I guess really with, we're talking about concentration and attention, it kind of links with processing and your perception of information that's being given to you. And in terms of processing, when you have the brain injury, being able to take on information, some days I know Mark is quite, he's quite good and you can talk to him and talk about something new and a new thing that we might be looking at doing or in a new system. And he's receptive to it completely. And then other days, it's almost, there's a little sort of blank glaze comes over and he can't take on that sort of information. And also, you can ask him a question and if his brain function is slower, he might take quite a long time to answer it because that processing is slower, isn't it?
Yeah, without a doubt. It's sometimes difficult as well. I mean, some of you will know that we launched a fatigue hub last week on a new system, and it's taken me quite a while to get my head around the system because I know exactly how it works. I know all the steps in it. I know how to work it, but I can't get my head around it. And if that will probably make a lot of sense to people because you know exactly what you're doing, but then it just doesn't work. Something misses in the middle somewhere.
And Charlotte, sometimes people give you their telephone number, or even if it's a voice message, call me back on this or do this, and you're desperately trying to write it down and you can't, and trying to take that information on.
Taking a dictionary to a medical appointment, that's a really, really good idea, because you mentioned the word jargon. Don't people love that as well? When you're somewhere medical or professional, people like to talk in their own language of what they know, but what we don't understand. And somebody used an acronym the other day and they kept using it over and over again. I thought, I've got no idea what you're talking about. So it's difficult.
And Ellie, I think that's a really good one, to be able to just say to people, would you mind just slowing down for me so I can take this information on? And you don't even have to say why you're asking them to slow down.
And actually fair play to you for that, because sometimes I get nervous about asking people to slow down because I feel like I'm offending them, especially the lady I mentioned a minute ago from the HMRC who had the really, really strong accent when we were talking about the tax setup on our account or something. And I felt really, really, I don't know, offensive, because I was thinking I should understand your accent, and that's not right to ask. So yes, thank you. I'm going to do that more often, actually.
Yes, and there's absolutely no shame in it whatsoever. But while we're talking of this, something that I'd like to hear what you think about this, because this is something that happens all the time, and it's lovely and it's sweet and it's also quite funny, is that if you're watching a TV series or a film and there's a plot to it, I get the questions every single time. Well, who's he? Well, he was the one that did that. Oh, right, okay. Did what? And then, the whole idea of following a plot or a story. Sometimes we have to stop it and I have to explain it so that we can carry on watching. Actually, we did, Ellie, we had subtitles, but that made it harder for you because you were trying to listen and read. But that is a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. I've tried subtitles a few times before. That's quite good.
But we had them on, didn't we? And we had to take them off because it was distracting you, wasn't it?
Distracting me as well. Yeah, that's right. Just a couple more coming in there as well. Tess said about speaking slower I'll start that one again. Speaking slower, but also asking on your voicemail to get people to leave their number twice. And I think that's a real genius one there. So change your voicemail, record a greeting on it, and say, can you leave your number twice for me? Fantastic. That's really, really good.
That's a good one. So I guess that I like the way this is flowing, because we're saying about that. And part of it is memory issues, which is a huge cognitive difficulty following brain injury. And it's not surprising, really, because your brain uses so many different parts of it to store your memory.
Well, that's it. And I mean, we've spent a lot of years researching and working on memory techniques. And this is actually pre-brain injury. So I was a school speaker at the time of my accident. And one of the main topics I would speak about in schools would be memory techniques. So it would be looking at how students can remember information in order to pass their exams. Now, a lot of mainstream education is based on fact-based recall. So you get given some information and you have to recall it in the exam. You have to remember it in the exam. Unfortunately, not everybody is great at remembering stuff that they don't have any interest in. So when you're talking about medical appointments in our world, trying to remember all that terminology and all those facts, or you're talking about a tax form with all these acronyms in it, they generally don't excite us unless you're working in the world of tax or you've studied medicine or that's your profession. So it can be really hard to remember stuff that doesn't excite or stimulate our brain. So going back to the school's qualifications, I would imagine that a lot of us have memories of our exams and school being stressful and something that we think, I learned all that stuff and I've never used it since. So what we used to teach, was to get students to be able to remember facts by using memory associations. But the study of the brain shows that the actual memory isn't the issue, it's the retrieval of the memory. So you will remember absolutely everything you do every single day throughout your life, but you won't always be able to recall it. This is why we have dreams. This is why we have flashbacks. This is why when we hear a song, we might think, oh, that song reminds me of sometime back in the 1980s or sometime back in the 1990s, or it reminds me of a person or a place or something like that, because your brain is activating a memory because of an association. Now, what's happened with us with a brain injury, unfortunately, is the neural pathways that we take in order to recall that information sometimes get damaged. So it means we have to reroute. And it's a little bit like a diversion on a motorway where all the traffic's trying to go that way, off the motorway down an A road or something like that. And the traffic's stacked back up because there's too much traffic trying to go down there. What does that do? It leads to congestion. And the same thing with our brains is, because our brain is congested, it leads to the fatigue, and then that is where we tend to drop off and forget things. So it can be really, really difficult finding that retrieval. And the best tip I always give to somebody is to try and find the quickest and easiest way of remembering that. Sometimes it can be the simplest thing of just writing it down or popping a reminder on your phone. And we've talked again about this in previous podcasts and webinars. It's just finding a tool that's going to really help you to remember stuff. And as some of you have mentioned, going into your medical appointment with a notebook or a dictionary.
Mark mentioned association, and that is so good. And I use that all the time now if things that I have to remember, I put an association with it. And something that, as I've got older, is remembering people's names. It's quite hard. So quite often then I'll try and put an association with that person and their name.
Yeah, I met a lady the other week. Her name was Sophie, and I could not get her name lodged into my mind. And I kept thinking, I'm sure her name's Stephanie. And it just kept going through my mind over and over again. And her name was Stephanie, or Steph for short. And all of a sudden we were listening to something in the background on the radio, and somebody mentioned Sophie Ellis-Bextor on this radio and saying, dance around your kitchen, because she does a radio show where she dances around the kitchen. Yeah, that's what she encourages people to do. And all of a sudden I thought, this lady's name's Sophie. So I imagine her dancing around her kitchen. And as you can tell, I can remember Sophie's name now. So it is sometimes a really, really simple association. And the biggest objection I used to get a lot of the time in the early days of school speaking and through our journey was people used to say, oh, but I haven't got time to do that. Or if I've got to create 10 associations, that's 10 more bits of information I've got to remember. But you would actually be surprised at how quickly it sticks in your mind. Now I've got this lady's name. I don't need to think of that association every single time because it's lodged in my mind. Every time I see her now, her face and who she is, her name is stuck. So I don't need to imagine her dancing around the kitchen now.
It is difficult trying to work out ways of memorizing things. And Ellie, you text yourself things.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, we do that. As soon as something happens and we think, oh, we must remember that, one of us will grab a phone and put it in there somewhere, so we've got it, and then we'll write it down somewhere so we can keep it and got something to refer back to, especially if it's something like really important to do with your brain injury or things that you've got coming up or just things that you're trying to work out.
I think as well, a really good little tip with that, taking it a step further, is if you text yourself or WhatsApp message or whatever you do, email yourself, mark it as unread. Because one thing I find that when I pick my phone up, because we use it a lot for business, I'll pick it up, and if there's something that's unread on there, I'll think, right, I need to look at that now. And if there's something that's staying unread on there, I know that I need to deal with it. So if it's something that maybe needs doing next Monday and I've texted myself that details, or it's something that I've got to do and I need to tick it off my list, I'll leave it as unread until I've done it. And it's like, right, it's read, it's ticked off the list now. That's brilliant. And Tess said about writing notes in the calendar on your phone because you don't always have a notebook with you. And absolutely, I never carry a notebook around with me, so I've always got my phone on me.
But equally, as I said, you know, it's also got the voice to text function.
Yes.
So, you know, technology is actually helping us quite a bit, I think. But this all kind of as well is about those, what they call executive functions, isn't it? So things like your ability, your reasoning skills. And I know sometimes you struggle with that, where I think, you know, this is quite logical, this is quite easy. And I can quite easily stand there and think, why don't you get this? Obviously, I don't do that, but I can understand how sometimes it's so difficult because your brain can't understand like 1 and 1 is 2 at times. You know, it just seems to go on a completely different sort of journey. So things like that, your reasoning skills are affected, your ability to solve problems as well. I mean, to be fair, what we've been doing in the last half an hour is fantastic because we've been talking about some of the problems that you're affected with and how we'd love to be able to solve them completely, but helping each other to work through them. So that's really, really good.
Yeah, it is without a doubt. And I mean, we talk about problem solving and also planning and multitasking is something that I found really difficult. So we was having a conversation with some friends earlier, and Jules is an amazing cook. She's brilliant at preparing foods, meals, and everything. And somebody went, "Oh, are you not any good at it?" to me, and I thought, I don't know how to answer that question because generally you do all the cooking, you prepare all the meals, and I think I feel guilty because I feel lazy sometimes. I feel like I'm not doing anything. But then I said to this lady, well, actually, I wouldn't say I'm not very good at it. I would just say that Jules is 10 times better and more efficient than me. But there's times where I'll go to help Jules out and she just say, look, do you know what? It's a lot quicker and easier for me to do that. And I'll go off and do something else because following that process is sometimes difficult. And I remember sometimes in the past where we've made a meal or something and Jules is right, I need that ingredient and it's still there. The peppers haven't been chopped up or whatever, or the onions haven't been chopped up. And I can't process that logic of step by step sometimes. So that planning and multitasking and following logical step by step guides doesn't always work.
It doesn't, but we generally sort of work around somehow, don't we?
Yeah.
But the other thing that can often happen is something that you do and you start something and not always finish it.
Yeah.
And that is the thing. And I do call you half a job Harry sometimes. That's my little nickname. Well, half a job Harry.
Yeah, it is very, very true. And we've just talked about technology and using the notes and everything. All these sorts of things are brilliant. But what I find sometimes is, right, I've left something on my phone, there's a note on there. Let me open that email, let me open that text, let me open that note or whatever it is. And then there's 1,000 things to distract me on it. And that's unfortunately the way of the world and the way of the technology. You only have to open social media, which we use loads for our business. The minute you open that, you're going to get something that's going to stimulate your brain and distract you straight away. And it is really hard for anybody to move away from that distraction, brain injury or not. So there's the amount of times that both of us will say, it's like, what did I come on here to do? I came on here to open a website. What was it? Or I came on here to reply to an email. I can't remember what it was now because I'm deep into something that's popped up, a notification. Yeah. So it is really, really difficult.
Something else, and I don't know how you guys that are on here, is once Marcus formed a habit of something, it's very, very difficult for him to break that habit sometimes and or create a new one. Because I find with anything new, he's all for it. It's like, oh yeah, that's really good. But it's almost like there's a barrier to doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does definitely. Yeah.
So I don't know how you guys cope with anything like that. If you want to stop doing something because you know that it's draining you. I mean, one of the things that we talked about is when you first get up in the morning, you're on your phone for about half hour or so. And I just think sometimes that's not the best way to start your day and your brain. But we don't seem to manage to break that habit.
I think I've cut it down.
There we go. Just cut it down.
I'll cut it down, do something else. But yeah, it is hard to, I mean, anything in the world is hard to break a habit. So anybody who's tried to lose weight, stop smoking, or start an exercise plan, it's difficult. It is very, very difficult. It's easy to carry on smoking, carry on eating junk food, or carry on sitting on the sofa. What is really key is actually starting or distracting yourself away from that particular habit. So for me, if I'm going to get up in the morning and I just spend that time just sitting on the sofa, scrolling through social media, I need something else to do. And if that something else might be going for a walk, then that could be a way of breaking the habit. It's replacing something with something else.
Yeah. And what Tess says is quite normal, is that you do it because it's a safety thing. It's a comforting, it's something that you know, isn't it? And you don't feel that you're having to push yourself or make yourself feel uncomfortable. So I absolutely do totally get that. There's no such thing as, utopia, the perfect thing, but we try to, I think somebody mentioned a little bit earlier, about your battery, and we're very, very conscious of that Mark only has so much battery and how to get the best out of it each day. And as he mentioned earlier, the last week, to be fair, the last few weeks, you've really struggled, haven't you, in terms of all of these things, the concentration, the attention, trying to remember things. It's just been, I think the word is testing, but it is what it is, and it's where we are. And we just try and break things down a little bit. And even like today, we'd been out and doing some stuff this morning, and we got back, had some lunch. And so that we planned this afternoon. And I said, the first thing we need to do, because we've come to a natural break, is let's do that rest. Let's go and have that hour where you're not using your brain. Let's try and recharge your little battery.
Yeah, and I did that as well, because I could have pushed through.
Yeah, and that's it. And that's why you said about, we created our fatigue hub, which is in its infancy at the moment, and we're going to be announcing the first webinar on that very, very shortly. But it's brand new, so it's taking a little bit of time.
Yeah, and Erin just summed up exactly what Jules just said there, is changing habits is exhausting. As someone struggling with mental fatigue, often having great intentions to do something is good, but following through is really, really hard. Yeah. And I'm totally with you on that. I've sat down so many times in the last couple of weeks, this is the task I'm going to work on now. And an hour later, I'm sitting there thinking, I haven't even started it, or this should have taken 5 minutes. Why is it taking an hour and a half? It is so difficult. So it is very, very exhausting.
And I think it's also very good if you have somebody with you that can sometimes notice before you do that the battery's draining quite quickly.
Yeah, you have so many points, or you have so many things that you're going to achieve that day. So the way we've worked with it is we'll pick things off of our to-do list that need doing that day. So there'll always be some exercise type thing for us. There'll always be something that we've got to do for work. Based activities, and there's always going to be life type things as well. So what we'll do is we'll look at what needs doing really, really urgently,
essential,
and what's essential to get through that day. Now, for me, if there's 5 things on my list and I know that I can't do all 5 of them in one day, I suppose my point system will be picking 3 of those 5 things if I know I've got the capacity to do them, and thinking, right, now let's prioritize them. I've got 3 things, let's put them in order, 1, 2, and 3. And if I don't do number 3 and that waits till tomorrow, is that okay? So something along those lines.
Yeah, we've been going now for 40 minutes, and I think we said this earlier, we could talk for hours on these subjects. And I hope that anything that's come up in this last 40 minutes has helped people that are on here, and anybody that's listening to this, the recording. We hope that it's helped as well. And it's been lovely to chat to you all, and especially some new people as well.
Yeah, please do come back and see us again in the future. So I've just put a link in there, which is brain-or-shine.com in the chat. You can find links to absolutely everything we do on Brain or Shine. So future webinars, which is generally a lived experience webinar like we're talking about today. We also have a law firm called Slater and Gordon who we're partnered with, and they give lots and lots of advice on various different legal matters. That sounds really testing and really taxing. They explain everything in the easiest possible way. And I think we've got some things coming about traveling, accidents abroad, and also about employment as well. So it's sometimes just knowing your rights, and please don't think you have to be going through a legal claim or pursuing a legal claim to get advice from a law firm. We also have a podcast, regular podcast, which goes out from next month. It's going out for once a month, because we'll also be linking into our Fatigue Hub, which is linked on there. There's a blog and also a regular newsletter. And I'm getting tired. I'm tired thinking about all those things. Please don't try and do all of them, because there's so much information on there. So pick the ones that work for you. And please do tell people within the brain injury community about all these resources, because our goal is to
help people,
help as many people as we possibly can.
Yes, definitely. Help people to understand it and get the best out of your lives.
We have a Facebook peer-to-peer support group as well, which is completely private. And again, please do come on there and join that, because we can carry on some of these chats as well, and you can share with us lots and lots of information.
But thank you so much, everybody. And if you've joined us from the UK, enjoy the rest of your evening. For those of you in Canada and elsewhere, enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you so much.
And Tess, that is a lovely comment to finish on. The best support group you found in 6 years. Thank you. That really means a lot to us. That's really, really lovely.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. But spread the word for us, because if we can get that community and that support going, fantastic. Tess, thank you.
You guys are amazing as well.
Thank you so much.
So have a lovely day, everybody.
Take care, everybody, and we'll speak to you very soon.